Hello, everybody. This is another story. Another story. I hope you like the stories, okay? I have maybe three or four coming up your way. So keep on watching before we continue and please subscribe. Many years ago, after my father took an early retirement, we relocated from Nairobi to rural home. There was this one time my father had traveled to Eldoret and left us under the care of our aunt. We lived in the same compound with my grandmother and uncles. It's one big home with different houses. One night in the wee hours of the night, we were deep asleep when my stepmother, whom my father married after we lost our mother. We we always refer to her as auntie, as that was her wish. She rushed into our room and frantically started shaking us to wake up. Wake up, quickly and confused. We all sat up and our on our bed trying to figure out what was happening. She was standing there shaking. It was 3 in the morning, surely. She looked at us as if gathering some courage, then told us, Granny is dead. We just lost Grandma. We looked at her in confusion. Of course, we are still sleeping. Then she covered her eyes using her hand as if trying to hide her grief, then walked to the living room. We looked at each other and, without uttering a word, we went back to bed. 3 minutes later, she came back. This time, she was somehow angry at us for going back to sleep. Like, wake up, what's wrong with you? I'm telling you that we've lost Grandma and you have the audacity to go back to sleep. Again, we sat up and started wondering what exactly we were supposed to do. To be honest, nothing like that had ever happened, and we couldn't comprehend what she wanted us to do. We honestly thought it was okay to go back to sleep and figure out every other thing the next day. Outside, we could hear women shouting and screaming. People had started people had started streaming into our compound. My grandmother, had been unwell, and since she was a staunch churchgoer, her fellow churchgoer had taken shift to watch over her each night till morning. This particular shift had realized that she had breathed her last and raised alarm. You know how it's gone when where I come from. The loud and wail and the faster other small will show up. It was like a wailing competition. My aunt still stood there as if wanting for us to do something. Then dawned on me that she was actually waiting for us to dress up and go out there and start wailing. Look at, without wasting a single second, they started wailing in unison. Even without a warning, they caught me off guard. They had zero tears, but their wail were loud enough. We loved our grandmother so much. We really did. Only that she had been bedridden for a while and we had already prepared our hearts for anything. I quickly joined in their wailing and with no time, it was a house full of why. My aunt then quickly shouted, Wacheni kulia, like, stop wailing. You are not supposed to cry until you view the body. At that point, I got it. She wanted us to go and see our grandmother's body before we could start crying. She made sure she left the room with us because if she didn't trust me. We could have gone back to sleep. We dressed up in warm attires as she stood there waiting for us. We then left our house and started walking towards grandma's house in total darkness. We were walking lazily behind her when we saw our dog running toward us from behind. He was my father's dog that had never familiarized itself with us ever since we relocated. It always saw us as intruders. It was it was always locked up except for night to keep it away from attacking visitors, including us. When all of us realized that the dog was behind us, we, the hell broke loose. It was time to run. We all started running while screaming towards our grandmother's house. When we got there, everyone was looking at us sorrowfully. We got there panting and even fell as we struggled to pave way in between mourners and enter our grandmother's house. Meanwhile, the dog had walked away like he never even happened. Mourners stood there pitying us. They all thought that we were screaming and mourning our grandmother. My aunt was so touched. She thought that we had finally woken up and realized our grandma was no more and we were now mourning. She then called our uncle to hold to tell him, like, come, tell our uncle to calm us down. Grandma's death has hit them hard. Hey, oh God, it was Osman, not grandma. It was the dog, not grandma. My uncle then sat there with us and started telling us how all will be well and how we should not worry because he was still around. We loved our grandma so much. We really wanted to cry, but with all this confusion around, our tears were nowhere to be seen. My sister was looking confused. My other sister was angry. She had slipped and fell in front of our grandma's house, and I was still sleepy. My uncle then stood and whispered to another woman sitting nearby, telling him that this news as has a shock on us. We can't even talk. This killed it. If we stayed there any longer, we were going to laugh, which could have sounded rude. We went to the store to eat mangoes. It was in December when the mangoes were in plenty. Till morning, then we went to grandma's room and finally it hit us that she was no more when we saw her body lying and still on her bed. We finally started mourning. It was still very early and more people were beginning to stream into the homestead. We were sitting under a guava tree waiting and hoping that our dad came back. He had been called immediately. We lost grandma, and since he was in Eldoret, he had promised to travel back fast the following day. It was still very cold outside, and we sat there shivering and looking all worn out when a little drama shook the place a little. We had one of grandma's friend who walked from the gate mourning so loudly. This one knew some good English and Swahili. Then in her old age, you know how brutally honest some old people are. As she approached the house, she stood in her dark tracks and started scanning around with her eyes. She then started walking again, shouting, I see you, I see you. You are already here, wailing already. Crocodile tears, machozi ya mamba. Someone here is shedding crocodile tears. We had only about 8 people standing outside the house whom she had seen. So that meant that Crocodile Tears' suspect was among the 8, as the rest were all inside the house. Among the 8 was my aunt. You should have seen how the 8 people started looking at each other in discomfort. I honestly felt for them. We nicknamed the grandma Machozi ya Mama. Anyway, my grandma's body laid there till my dad arrived that afternoon, accompanied by health officers to help in doing whatever it is they do in such cases. You should have seen how broken he was when he walked into the homestead with shoulder bend in a manner like to suggest that he was at the verge of giving up. He had lost his mother. When that grandmother saw my father walking into the compound as other people joined in singing, she welcomed him. She was the one again shouting like Dawoodi. There's someone there shedding crocodile tears. When my father finally collected himself and stood to eloge his mom, on all he said was, the tree that holds all the nest here has been cut down. Where will the birds build their nest? The end. Life in the rural area was just something else. We lived and live it is well. Subscribe.